One author wants to explain why he's not rich and why you might not be either. In the new book, None of My Business, P.J. O'Rourke combines his experience as a foreign war correspondent with his knack for satire to explain how money gets made. O'Rourke is also the former editor of the National Lampoon. Earlier, my colleague Tanya Rivero caught up with him.
P.J. O'Rourke, thank you so much for joining us to talk about your delightful book, None of My Business.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
According to the title, you're going to explain a lot of things that I'm very curious about, namely why I'm not rich and neither are you. What are we doing wrong?
Yeah, what are we doing wrong? Yes, I think we failed to take all that, like, really, really ugly math. I don't know about you with math. I mean, you may be a math genius, but as I was going through high school, I kind of got tomahawked by Chief Sokotoa in the middle of trigonometry. So, as far as I got. And about halfway through trigonometry, I dropped right out. And the future does seem to belong to people that can really fill the blackboard with numbers and figures that you can't understand.
And I guess, unfortunately, that's not us. But let's do a deep dive into some of what you do know about business, which is actually quite a lot. It started out with your work as a war correspondent.
It did.
For years. What did covering wars in foreign countries teach you about?
Well, it's very instructive to, I say right in the book that some people take economics in college and some people read it on their own. Some learn in the School of Hard Knocks. I learned economics by watching people try to kill each other. It's very, very instructive. And the very first place that I ever went as a war correspondent was Lebanon during the Civil War in that country. It was about 1984, I want to say. And, you know, I wasn't thinking about economics. And I was thinking, well, I'm covering a war and I'm covering all the, you know, there's this religious and ethnic and all these divisions that led to the war and what are they, you know. And it wasn't, I don't know, really until I got back that I realized, hey, wait a minute, that country ripped to shreds, once the Switzerland of the Middle East, just in ashes, and yet it still had a functioning economy. And there was no power, but everybody had a little electric generator out on the sidewalk with extension cords just going all over the place. And it was so noisy that it drowned out the sound of gunfire.
Incredible.
And of course, people were fed. I mean, you know, I said, you know, if Lebanon didn't have an economy, it would all the people who weren't dead from the war would be dead from starvation. So then I said, you know, I don't know where all that money is coming from. War is very capital intensive. And then I thought, yes, I do, because I'd been out to the Bekaa Valley, which is the most prosperous agricultural land in Lebanon. And it was full to the horizon with huge, lush green marijuana plants.
So in some ways, that observation sort of teaches you that trade and economics will continue no matter what the circumstances. People have to make a buck. They have to make a living.
The economic impulse always stays. The other thing is that I began to realize over the course of 20 years of covering wars and revolutions and civil disturbances and riots and social collapses, that everybody's in it for something, that the profit motive never goes away. Now, the profit may not be money, although it often is, most often is, but the profit may be power, or the profit may be fame as some, like, really bad, ferocious fighter, you know. Power can be fear. The profit can be fear, but people are in it for something, even the good people. Even the aid workers and the peacemakers and so on, they're piling up treasure in heaven. Everybody's in it for something.
For something. And those things are often linked, those things that you just mentioned.
Yes, power and money,
yes.
Naturally.
But then you also say that all of this social media, our constant interaction, you think that it may be a fad. There are a lot of people that would disagree with you on that.
I am sure there are, Mark Zuckerberg to start with, but no, I do think it's something we'll get over. It may take us 100 years to get over, but I do think we'll get over it.
So this addiction to our phones and checking constantly.
It's just, you know, it is no way to live. It really is no way to live. And I look at the internet, I think, whose bright idea was it to make sure that every idiot in the world is in touch with every other idiot, you know? And then you know, if I were to get on social media, I'm afraid they'd all be in touch with me. Well, you know, I love it as a tool, but as a toy, as social tissue, it's just terrible.
You also observe a lot through your daughters, and you've made some observations about retail through your daughter's shopping habits, which I thought were interesting.
I've got a daughter. She's now almost 21, and but this was a few years ago that I was in her. So she's in high school, and she's very fashion forward, and she's wearing a lot more clothes than I recall the Visa card bills being. You know, I'm going. Finally, I sit her down. I said, "Honey, you're like dressing in all sorts of different stuff, and it's all different every day. And what gives here? I'm worried about it. Is she selling drugs?
Right.
What?
Something's not adding up.
Yeah. And what I found out was that there's this whole network of young women, and you may know about this, but I certainly didn't, is that they swap and trade clothes, and they find all sorts of clothing bargains. They go online, find the latest fashions, and then they go online and they find the closest knockoffs to those latest fashions. They wear the outfit once and they ship it off to another girl who pays them notionally. You know, it's all quite inexpensive. And they sort of swap and trade and sell each other these clothes.
So that doesn't bode well for the high-end retail business.
It doesn't really at all. I mean, it doesn't bode well for the retail business at any level, either online or in the stores.
You say she goes to Bloomingdale's like you would go to a Ferrari dealership just to check out the wares and then go buy them online.
That is exactly what she does.
PJ O'Rourke, thank you so much for coming to see us today.
You are welcome.